Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a world gripped by fear. A nation reeling from the most catastrophic intelligence failure in its history. In the immediate aftermath of September 11, 2001, the Central Intelligence Agency, under immense pressure to prevent another attack, found itself desperate for information. Traditional methods like bribing agents proved futile against ideologically driven terror groups like Al-Qaeda. The United States, seen as the injured party and the good guys, faced a profound dilemma. Physical torture was known to be ineffective and created a bad look for America, yet they needed answers. This led to a disturbing linguistic and ethical sidestep, replacing torture with the euphemism of enhanced interrogation, techniques purportedly acceptable if they left no permanent physical harm. Within weeks of 9/11, a shadowy network of black sites was hastily conceived. On September 17, 2001, President George Bush signed a classified directive granting the CIA authority to secretly imprison and interrogate detainees. The core objective was to operate beyond conventional legal frameworks and the rules of war, which would have mandated declaring suspects as prisoners of war, granting them access to lawyers and trials, and crucially prohibiting torture. The aim was not just to extract information, but to create overpowering, psychologically conditioned feelings of powerlessness and defenselessness in detainees. This deliberate secrecy was paramount. Intended to place interrogations beyond the reach of law, the architects of this controversial program were two contract psychologists, James Mitchell and Bruce Jessen. Despite lacking prior interrogation experience or specific knowledge of Al-Qaeda, they reverse engineer their methods from the Air Force's SEER program, originally designed to train U.S. soldiers to resist brainwashing. They drew insights from the Manchester Manual, an Al-Qaeda training guide detailing resistance techniques. Their work applied concepts, like Martin Seligman's learned helplessness, aiming to psychologically break the will of detainees initially. They claimed their techniques would align with the Geneva Convention. But mounting pressure quickly shifted discussions towards enhanced interrogation techniques and moving detainees to facilities beyond the reach of the Red Cross or international observers. The program's very first test subject was Abu Zubaydah, a suspected Al-Qaeda operative captured in Pakistan in March 2002. He was so severely injured that a top U.S. hospital doctor was flown in to save his life. As the CIA needed him alive for interrogation, he was then transported to Detention Site Green, the CIA's first secret prison, located at an old U.S. military base in Thailand, secured through a deal with the Thai government to provide a legal veneer. Justice Department lawyers drafted torture memos, defining Al-Qaeda members as unlawful enemy combatants, to argue that standard rules did not apply. CIA agents even sought and received assurances that Abu Zubaydah would remain in isolation and incommunicado for the remainder of his life. However, the intense secrecy could not last forever. Thai government officials grew uncomfortable, and the media began poking around. Donna Priest's persistent reporting for the Washington Post on secret black site prisons even prompted President Bush and Vice President Cheney to personally try and dissuade publication. Spooked by the exposure, the CIA decided to leave Thailand. This initiated a complex global extraordinary rendition program, moving prisoners on unmarked private planes with dummy flight records to hide their true destinations. At least 54 foreign governments spanning Africa, Asia, Australia, Europe, and North America participated, hosting prisons, assisting in capture and transport, or allowing their airspace to be used for these secret flights. Some host nations like Poland received millions of dollars in cash payments. The network of black sites expanded across continents. Codename Cobalt, also known as the Salt Pit, was once a brick factory north of Kabul. Afghanistan seized by the CIA and named the darkness by prisoners because they would not see light again. Other known black sites included Detention Site Blue in Poland, Detention Site Violet in Lithuania, facilities in Romania and Morocco. The CIA also operated two black sites. Maroon and Indigo separate from the military prison at Guantanamo Bay. Cuba, some detainees were even held on floating prisons or ships in international waters. The goal remained constant: to psychologically break subjects down to gain information, reducing individuals to an almost childlike state of complete dependence. The techniques employed were brutal and varied, designed to inflict severe physical and psychological distress, Immediately upon arrival at the salt pit, a detainee would have a sandbag secured over their head, immersing them in perpetual darkness. Cells lacked furniture, and detainees were shackled to steel rings on concrete floors, 24/7, sometimes short, chained to prevent standing or chained high above their heads for days, causing severe damage. There were no bathrooms. Prisoners wore diapers, or were forced to relieve themselves on the floor. Temperatures inside could soar to over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. In summer, but winter was truly torturous, with temperatures as low as 31 degrees Fahrenheit, leaving nude detainees vulnerable to constant hypothermia. Constant loud music including Metallica, death metal, and even Barney the Dinosaur's theme song was blasted into cells. To cause psychological stress, detainees were subjected to all liquid diets that left them perpetually hungry. Other methods included waterboarding, which simulates drowning and leaves even hardened agents struggling after seconds. Walling, where detainees were repeatedly slammed against a wall. Icing, where nude prisoners were doused with ice-cold water. Forced nudity for humiliation. And cramped confinement in small, dark boxes, sometimes with insects like cockroaches, for hours or even days medically. Unnecessary rectal feeding and exams were used for behavior control, leading to severe physical injuries. Threats to families, including sexual abuse of mothers or killing children, were also employed. Mock executions were even staged to terrorize detainees. Between 2002 and 2009, at least 119 Muslim men were held in CIA custody, with at least 39 subjected to these enhanced interrogation techniques. The human cost was profound and often permanent. Ghulam Muhammad died in November 2002 from suspected hypothermia at the salt pit, found naked and chained to the concrete floor. Abu Zubaydah was waterboarded 83 times, becoming unresponsive, and confined to a coffin-shaped box for over 11 days. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the alleged mastermind of 9/11, endured 183 waterboardings and threats to his children. He famously gave false information under torture, leading the CIA to pursue two innocent men. Ibn al-Sheikh Alabi, under threat of torture in Egypt, fabricated intelligence about Iraq, providing chemical weapons training to al-Qaeda. This false information was later used by Colin Powell to justify the Iraq War. Other victims included Abdul Rahim al-Nashiri, subjected to mock executions in Poland, Mar era Canadian Syrian mistakenly seized and tortured for a year, and Khaled al-Masri, a German national who suffered similar abuse. Mustafa al-Hawsawi suffered a rectal prolapse from medically unnecessary rectal exams. Crucially, the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee report, following a 5-year investigation, concluded that enhanced interrogation techniques were not only brutal, but also ineffective. It found no relationship between the information from torture and thwarting these plots. Information deemed useful was often obtained from other sources, or already known, and detainees frequently fabricated information to stop the torture. The program was also marred by erroneous renditions, where innocent individuals were abducted. Due to vague association or mistaken identity, the CIA actively misled federal officials and the public about the program, and in 2005 destroyed videotapes documenting interrogations, acknowledging they were so horrific, they would be devastating to the CIA. The program inflicted immeasurable damage to the United States public standing and undermined its long-standing global leadership on human rights. It strained relations with international partners, with a European Court of Human Rights ruling against Poland in 2014 and Romania and Lithuania in 2018 for allowing torture on their soil, forcing reparations. The program cost well over $300 million in non-personnel costs, including facilities never used. Perhaps most disturbingly, it prevented justice for the families of those killed during the September 11, 2001 attacks due to the use of brutal and illegal torture. Evidence obtained from detainees like Abdul Rahim al-Nashiri, charged with planning the USS Cole bombing, became inadmissible in court, tainting cases and denying victims' families closure. Al-Qaeda successfully provoked the U.S. to violate its own norms and values, turning their perpetrators into symbols of American hypocrisy rather than symbols of terror. The program was eventually shut down. Of the 119 men, 94 were released and 21 remain in custody at Guantanamo Bay, yet only 3 have faced any form of trial. Despite overwhelming evidence of torture and widespread international condemnation, there has been a notable lack of prosecution. For high-ranking U.S. officials involved, the ongoing emergence of details, such as forensic photography of black site cells in recent trials, and continued efforts to declassify information, show that the full extent of these realities is still being uncovered. Years after the program's effective end, this dark chapter underscores the critical need for full transparency and an unwavering commitment to the absolute prohibition of torture. It's a stark reminder that true security cannot be built on a foundation of ethical compromise. If you want to delve deeper into how governments balance national security with human rights, make sure to check out our next video, where we explore the legal battles surrounding surveillance programs